we're joined by Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, the former U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Thanks for joining us today. And before we get to you, I want to play a clip real quick. There's just a setup here. This is from Psaki from Press Gaggle yesterday, day before yesterday. Let's take a listen. This is aboard Air Force One, so just know the sound is a little rough. And this is about their current Biden strategy in the Middle East. Let's take a listen.
Again, I would say that we are not following the same tactics of the prior administration. The president has reinstated humanitarian assistance and security assistance to the Palestinians. That's something that was stopped back in 2018, and we felt was not a constructive action by the prior administration. Aside from putting forward a peace proposal that was dead on arrival, we don't think they did anything constructive, really, to bring an end to the long-standing conflict in the Middle East. So.
Okay, we'll stop it there. Secretary Pompeo, just give me your response to that. Nothing constructive, maybe coming out of the previous administration in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, I agreed with her. They're not using the same tactics, and they're certainly not using the same strategy. It doesn't actually appear that they have a strategy. This is silliness that she speaks of there. The Abraham Accords flowed from three central ideas. One was, first, we provided unequivocal support to the Israelis. It stopped exactly the kind of rocket attacks that you're seeing today, right. Thousands of rockets landing in Israel. Second, we made clear that the destabilizing force in the Middle East was the Iranian regime. It's that same Iranian regime that two things are happening right now. One, the Americans are sitting with them in Vienna trying to negotiate a deal to give them billions of dollars more. And second, the Iranians are taking the money that they have and funneling it to Hamas and using it to fire rockets into Israel. I mean, this is crazy stuff. The third thing we did was convince Arab states that the Palestinian cause was important, it mattered, but peace and stability in the region were even more important, and we delivered on that. There was much good that came. This happened on their watch. They're going to own it. She talked about restoring funding to the Palestinians. Any idea where that money's going?
She admits it's not just humanitarian assistance, but also security assistance for the Palestinians. And we know where that goes. We know it goes to pay to slay. We know it goes to further this violence against Israel. I mean, is the Biden administration now complicit in what's going on currently?
You know, one thing you learn very quickly in the national security world is that money is fungible. Wherever you think you may be sending it, it may well be going someplace else. You can be sure that U.S. taxpayer dollars are being used for corrupt purposes. It's why we stopped it, was this very reason. The fact that they are not holding the Hamas terrorists, the corrupt Palestinian leadership in the West Bank accountable. And then now I heard today President Biden saying that he's expecting a decrease in violence. Well, I know how to get a decrease in violence really quickly. Have the Iranians stop underwriting Palestinian terror. The Israelis have every right to defend themselves. I hope they take out every bit of Hamas's infrastructure and make sure that something like this can't happen again. And I hope that Americans across the broad political spectrum will make clear that is U.S. policy. It is not enough. It is not enough for Democrats to say they are pro-Israel. They need to call out congressmen like Ro Khanna and AOC and Rashid Tlaib, who are acting in a way that is deeply anti-Semitic. They need to be clear about this. They need to be articulate about it, and they need to defend Israel's right to defend not only the Jews in their country, but they're defending with the Iron Dome Christians and Arabs and Muslims. People of every faith inside that country are being protected, and it's the Palestinians that are trying to kill those very same people.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, and I think for those of us who've spent time there, who spent time in the Middle East, who spent time in Israel, watching the Abraham Accords, unfold was a deeply emotional experience for a lot of us to see this progression happening for a country that we love and for a people that we love. And again, you said multi-faith in Israel. It's an amazing place to visit and to be. So to see that progression, like I said, I'd sit there with tears in my eyes watching, the movement and the progression, whether it was signing deals with all these different countries and the travel and everything, because this is what we wanted. Because there was always that thought process of, you got to make sure when you went into Israel, you had to be careful with if they stamped your passport, where were you going to go next? Because some countries wouldn't even allow you into the next place. And then to have that turn, to have this such in under a year, to 6 months, to have the Middle East go back to how it was 4 years ago, 6 years ago, where it just seems like there's chaos. It's heartbreaking to watch. And when the response is, well, we're doing this quietly behind the scenes. We're not taking this. I think Psaki said, we're going, everyone knows diplomacy it's quiet. We do quiet diplomacy. That's the most effective way. When all of us know it's exactly the opposite.
No, that's right. One of the things that we did in the Trump administration that was really important is we spoke the truth and we said it out loud. We didn't make claims that we weren't prepared to defend. When we drew a line, we meant it. Meant we drew perhaps fewer lines in some cases, but we were going to lock into it and we were going to deliver really good outcomes. When we said Qasem Soleimani is threatening Americans, we took him off the map. The same way, this administration needs to make very clear their commitment to allow Israel to do everything it needs. We need to continue to support Israel with military assistance. I saw some Democrat yesterday saying they were going to stop military assistance to Israel because of the fact that they're defending their own people. I saw today, I saw crazy stuff from BLM. Every Democrat needs to, who has supported the Black Lives Matter movement needs to explain why they're on the side of Black Lives Matter, who has made clear that they are now forming common cause with these terrorists, now 20-plus year designated terrorists from the United States. There's a lot of explaining to do. There are a lot of people who have wanted to play the line and claim they were pro-Israel, wouldn't defend them when it matters most. This is the time that it matters most. Moral clarity is absolutely the currency of the day, and we should have every expectation that every leader ought to speak loudly and clearly and succinctly, promoting Israel and defending Israel's right to defend its own people.
Mr. Secretary, we know that Iran is funding and supplying its proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. We know that because the Hamas has boasted about it. They're getting their resources from Iran, and they admitted it. So you suspected it, and we now know that they confessed to having done it. What I want to know is the Biden administration willing to sacrifice our relationship with Israel, which is of long-standing duration, in order to get a new deal with Iran that they have been kibitzing with them in Vienna about?
It's not just Israel, although Israel is at the center of it. I think that they're prepared to sacrifice just about anything. I think this JCPOA became an article of faith for the leftist foreign policy establishment. They think there's nothing that is too much to sacrifice to get some crazy nuclear deal that guarantees a pathway for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. They are deeply wedded to this. I don't see any indication that they're prepared to walk away from the table. While they are sitting there discussing handing billions of dollars to the Iranians through this deal, the Iranians are funneling hundreds of millions of dollars to terrorists. I mean, that is a head scratcher of unimaginable proportions. I don't see any indication they're prepared to walk away. I think they're prepared to sacrifice an awful lot to get that. And sadly, the Europeans, the Chinese, and the Russians are all on the same side on this JCPOA craziness.
Secretary Pompeo, I really appreciate you coming on, talking to us about this specific topic.